Soft White Underbelly is about giving people a space to tell their stories, even when these stories challenge what we think we know. Ground News shows us different perspectives in the media, which is why Ground News is a perfect sponsor for my channel. In a world where algorithms censor much of the information we receive, some of the most important stories get missed from our news feeds. Ground News highlights local news from around the world, giving you an on-the-ground perspective that national coverage might miss. The app and website empowers you to form your own opinions by presenting you with every article published on any news story worldwide. My favorite part of the app is the data it gives you on each news source as you read it, such as where it leans on the political spectrum, a factuality rating indicating how subjective their printed reporting tends to be, and who funds it. I particularly like their blind spot feed, dedicated to showing you news stories that are underrepresented in the mainstream media. You can check this all out by scanning the QR code on screen or clicking the link below. It's easy to forget how much bias can shape the reality we live in. And in a world where our attention is constantly being fought over, my Vantage plan easily helps me keep up with more important stories slipping through the cracks. So I encourage you to check them out at ground.news/SWU. Subscribe through my link to save 40% off their Vantage plan. And by subscribing or even gifting it to someone you know, you're helping hold the media accountable and helping my channel directly. Thank you for watching. All right, Darren. Darren, you've worked in law enforcement how many years?
About 29 years.
29 years?
Yeah.
And you started where?
I started as a correctional officer at San Quentin State Prison in 1986.
What got you interested in law enforcement? How'd you grow up?
I grew up in San Jose, California, and I had thought about being a police officer. I took some college courses. And then I started hanging around with a couple guys that were associated with the Hells Angels.
And you're trying to decide which way to go? Yeah,
and I thought maybe I might do that. And then we were at the fairgrounds, Santa Clara County Fairgrounds one day, and I saw a recruiting booth at San Quentin, for San Quentin, with pictures of San Quentin all over. I started looking at them, and the guy asked me if I wanted to work there. I said no, and started to walk away, and he goes, well, you don't want to work there? And one of my buddies I was with turned and said, hey, leave the kid alone. He said he doesn't want to work there. He said, well, you don't even know how much money we make. And I asked him, it was $1,800 a month for the academy. So I filled out the application and kind of forgot about it. And then when some of the tests came up, I wasn't going to go, and I was at the muffler shop with these guys. And they told me I need to take the job. They said, you need to do the testing, see if they offer you the job. They're older than me. And follow through with it. Pays good, has benefits. If you hang around here, the club's just going to take stuff from you. And I think they knew I probably didn't have it in me to do what they did, to earn the patches.
Yeah.
And so I took their advice and followed through with it. And then when I became a correctional officer, I didn't lose touch with them. But you lose some of the friendship and some of the other friends.
Do they treat you differently because you're now on the other side, basically?
Yeah, not really. But they would make jokes. What are you doing? You're telling now, and all kinds of stuff. So, yeah. And I stayed at San Quentin from 86 to 92. And when I first got there, I kind of wanted to quit because it was scary. And then 92, I went to Solano State Prison. I didn't like how it ran. I didn't like nothing about it.
Let's go back to San Quentin, though, before we move on to Solano.
Yeah.
Tell me about some of you probably had some high-profile prisoners.
Yeah, I had learned a lot there, learned how to talk to people, found out that you don't call African-Americans boy. I made that mistake once, and they warned me about it, the inmates. And they said if I call them boy again, I won't leave the area I was at, which was the prison industries where they make mattresses. I always tell them, let's go, let's lock up. Come on, boy, let's go. This great, big, huge, what was that guy's name? Michael Clark Duncan or whatever. It reminded me of that big actor that was real buffed with the trap sticking out the back of his neck. He walks up to me, points at me, goes, you're lucky you're new. I'm like, what did I do? And he goes, you don't call black people boy. And I'm 21 years old. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know. He goes, I know. You're lucky you're new. You do that again up here and you won't leave up here. I'm like, okay, thanks. So I had a couple odd end jobs at San Quentin, worked the kitchen, the kitchen at San Quentin's just like you see on TV, big murals everywhere, pretty awesome. Had a big fight in there one time, and I learned that you need to duck down or you're going to get hit in the head with a tray flying through the air. And then when the gunman started firing shots, you could hear them ricocheting off the walls.
How common are prison fights?
Pretty common. Back then it was. This is 86, 87. It's way different now.
And where do the fights end up? Like, you get people dying in these?
Yeah, some people were stabbed and died. Some people got shot from the gunman and would die.
And it's usually a racial thing?
Yeah, a lot of times it's racial. I would say 95% of the time.
Yeah.
And then there was a lieutenant that liked me, and I got put in the adjustment center. Now, back in 86 and 87, you didn't have Pelican Bay, wasn't open yet. Corcoran, I think, might have just opened. And those are all high-level, level 4 facilities for violent inmates. So all you had at the time was the adjustment center at San Quentin and 4A in Folsom, Old Folsom. And so you would flip-flop the inmates when they caused problems. And the adjustment center, you would kind of get handpicked to work it. I mean, you had other officers in there too, vacation relief officers and stuff, but the permanent officers kind of got handpicked by the lieutenant if they liked you. And so I worked in there all the way until I left in 92. And on the first floor, me and another gentleman, Rodriguez, we ran the first floor 5 days a week during a day shift. And on the left side, we called it Famed Row. And that's where I had Charles Manson, Richard Ramirez. I can't remember the gentleman's name, but we used to call him the Alphabet Bomber. He bombed the LA airports years ago. Tookie Williams, he had came in there. I don't know if you'd heard Tookie Williams. Sure. Lil Fee, which was Tycon Quacks, a Rolling 60s Crip. Just bad guys. But they had respect. If you didn't disrespect them, they wouldn't disrespect you. Some of the stories, like with Charlie or Richard Ramirez even, on the weekends, we'd let Charlie Manson come out and play his guitar and sing. He could sing, and he says he knew Dennis Wilson from the Beach Boys, and that he claims some of his songs are his. But
I think that's true, because 2 doors down from my old house, Dennis Wilson's old house, and my neighbor took guitar lessons from Charles Manson.
Yeah,
when she was young.
Yeah, he could play the guitar pretty good. So we'd put him in the holding cage and play and sing his guitar. And this one particular day I'm thinking of, I'm getting ready to leave. I got off at 2:30, and Charlie would call me Irish, and I could hear him. His cell was all the way at the end on the left-hand side, because he liked when the birds would come in or the ants and stuff would come into his cell. He called them his pets. He's yelling for me, Irish, come down here. Irish, come down here. And I think I can't remember what year it was. It was a weekend, February 6th. I think it was a Sunday. But I yelled down, no, Charlie, I'm going home. No, you need to come down here. So I get another officer. So let's go down and see what he's screaming for. So we go down all the way down there and talk to him. What's up? What's going on, Charlie? What do you need? He goes, here, I made a birthday card for your wife. I'm like, what? He goes, yeah, I made a birthday card for your wife. And he hands it to me, and it's a little picture of himself that he drew. And then he signed it. I said, what am I supposed to do with this? Well, give it to your wife for your birthday. I'm like, okay. Well, thanks, and I left. And I before I left, I'm asking him, how do you know it's my wife's birthday? He goes, oh, I know everything. He'd have this laugh to him. Come on, you dig, man? I know everything. I said, Charlie, tell me how you know it was her birthday before I leave. He goes, well, when I was in there playing the guitar, you went in the office right there and picked up the phone on the desk and called her and told her happy birthday. I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool. Thanks. It was kind of weird, and I take it home, and she didn't want nothing to do with it. And she goes, I don't want that.
He was a nice guy?
he, yeah. I mean, he wasn't
the monster that
wasn't a monster. He could be kind of an asshole sometimes, but it depends on who was around him and who he was talking to. And he was definitely strange way of thinking. Talked definitely a hippie. Talked like I don't know what that means. Talk like a hippie, but dig and man and that kind of stuff. Yeah. And he would talk about subjects that would just I would get lost. You have no idea what he's talking about.
Right.
So it was at the time you don't realize it. Kind of like high school. When you're in high school, you don't realize how fun it is till it's over with, right? It was unique, and a unique. I don't even know if I call it a relationship, but me and him could talk. He could talk to some of the other officers, and there's got to be a few hundred correctional officers that have met him or went by him and saw him, but I don't know how many have actually sat down and had conversations with him or would listen to him sing and play the guitar. So that part's kind of, looking back on it now, say, okay, that was kind of cool.
Sure.
In a weird way.
Yeah.
Not that I condone what he did by no means or talked other people into doing. But he had some charisma to him where he could kind of draw you in a little bit. But you knew who he was, so. The other people on that tier was Richard Ramirez would tell stories by the third part, like it was a friend of his that committed the crimes. His friend broke into a house in San Francisco and couldn't do anything because there's a party going on. And after a couple hours, he left, got back out the window that he crawled in. And the reason I talk about that one is because there's a family living in San Francisco that had Richard Ramirez in their closet, hiding, that's already killed 14 people by this time. And they have no idea to this day that they were, it could have been, anybody's house.
And he didn't do anything?
No, he didn't do that. But he hid in their closet for a couple hours.
Wow.
And then he would, if you looked at his mail in his cell, he would scratch the eyeballs out of the women's pictures. Women would send him pictures, and and I always thought that was weird. So why would you do that? But he's off. And he was a weirdo. He was strange.
You'd have to be off to be in the San Quentin.
Yeah. And some of the other guys in there were, a lot of people, Tookie Williams, great, big, huge guy. And he was actually in the adjustment center for assaulting staff on death row because he was on death row. And death row inmates, if they caused problems, they'd come to us in the adjustment center. But he was respectful. No issues with him really, other than the prison guard that he punched was giving him problems. And the rumor is, I don't know if it's true, that he broke the handcuffs. And then the officer just stared at him in shock, like, uh-oh. Tookie did tell me, though, that that officer wouldn't talk to him anymore because he worked in the adjustment center on overtime once and wouldn't even look in his cell. I'm trying to think of who else was in there. Taekwon Cox he started the Rolling 60s Crip, or he was famous for that. He killed a bunch of people in L.A. But again, no problems. They just wanted to do their time and be left alone. Then we had one of the other ones I tell, being at San Quentin, was Billy Ray Hamilton. Billy Ray Hamilton had killed a bunch of people, or a few people. He was on death row, and he shaved his whole body. And I'm getting ready to leave one day, and he's asking me for a razor, because they didn't get razors on the first floor. You had to give it to him, and then you'd go and get it back. He wanted a razor. I said, okay. Well, I forgot about it and went home. Well, the next day, we're running yard. It's Billy's turn to go out to yard. And I looked in the cell, and all his stuff was packed up nice and neat, which usually means something's going to happen on the yard. And then everyone's going to get locked down and get put in the quiet cell or something. And we had quiet cells in the back that they eventually made inhumane to you. You couldn't close the solid door anymore. And that's where we would put them, and we'd take all their property and stick it in the property room. But they went from the hole to the deeper hole in the back. So I wasn't thinking too much of it. And in the adjustment center, it was 2 officers to every inmate. And you had a bar box at the end that the guy at the end of the tier would operate this bar box to open the doors. So Billy backs out of the cell. He's handcuffed. Come to the sally port. At the end of the tier, you had a sally port. This door would stay closed when this door opened. They'd walk into the sally port. This door would close. Then this door would open. Well, as this door opens, comes in, I turn my back to him, and I turn back, and he's trying to punch me, and the handcuff kind of whizzes right by my head here. And so we just had whistles back then. We didn't have alarms. So the officer I was with blows his whistle, and we're trying to get him back in handcuffs. And he could fight. He's skinny, strong. Got him back in handcuffs. Stuck him in the quiet cell, moved all his property. And I kind of wondered what that was about, but, it's just work, right? So, no, not that big a deal. The next day I come into work, we're passing out lunches. Well, we're in the back in the quiet cells, and I go to open his food port to hand him his lunch. He's like, "Hey, Monahan." I'm like, "Hey," he goes, "I did pretty good yesterday, huh?" I'm like, what do you mean, Billy? What do you mean you did good? He goes, "Well, I did good. It took like 4 of you officers to get me in handcuffs." I said, "Yeah." You fought pretty good. That was good. I said, "What was that about?" And he goes, "Well, remember the day before you wouldn't give me my razor?" I'm like, "Yeah, I was going home." And he goes, "Well, all the inmates started trying to punk me, talk crap, that I punked you, that I punked him. In other words, I punked Billy Ray by not doing what he wanted, giving him a razor." He goes, "So I had to do something. I had to, show the tier that I'm a man. I'm not going to get punked." Like, "Oh, okay. No big deal." I mean, it was just part of I understand. Here's your lunch. I'll talk to you later. And left. And that was their mentality in there. And it would trip me out. But talking to them and communicating and having different, as much of a relationship you could with inmates, really taught you how to talk to people. Really taught you. There's several people at that time at San Quentin that were actually really good people. They had just made the wrong mistake at the wrong time and wound up in prison. Some of them, it becomes a life for them, and some of them just want out and get back to life. And it's the easiest ones to get along with back then were the life sentence guys. They didn't want any problems. We call them lifers. They just wanted to work and go back to their cell. And at San Quentin, most of the correctional officers just wanted to work and go home. Nobody was there to give the inmates a bad time. Nobody's there to try to beat up anybody, or just, that wasn't our job. And I was limited at San Quentin to where I worked because I did work the adjustment center, unless I worked overtime. So we had heard we were going to get a job change, me and the guy that ran the first floor. And I'm 28 years old, I think, at the time. And I thought, when you're young and you think you're I don't know how else to say it, you think you're king shit, right? You work the adjustment center, which was a huge deal back then. If I'm going to get a job change, I'll just work closer to home. I lived at Vacaville at the time. I'm thinking, I'll show you, I'll just transfer. Well, the new warden at Solano State Prison at the time used to be our associate warden in the adjustment center. She didn't care for us a whole lot. She didn't care for our tactics and some of the things. She tried change, and she did make some good changes. I thought there's no way I'm going to be able to transfer to Solano, but I'm going to try. So I put in paperwork and spoke to her on the phone, and she took me, and I went to Solano, and I hated it. I couldn't. It's. I don't know how to really put it in words other than the inmates and the correctional officers there were just different. Their mentality was different. At San Quentin, the prison guards ran the prison. At Solano State Prison, the inmates ran the prison. And in reality, the inmates run all their prisons as far as how their what's the word? Attitudes and everything is in the prison. But I've never had an inmate tell on another inmate before or an officer tell on another officer before when I was at San Quentin. You just didn't do it. You just didn't tell. The officers would fight in the parking lot at San Quentin to settle their beefs. And at Solano, they would just run and tell their supervisor. The inmates, I had an inmate in the kitchen at Solano come tell me that another inmate wasn't mopping the floor. I'm like, why are you telling me? Well, because you're the officer. I said, okay, I understand that, but you're the lead guy, so if he doesn't mop the floor, you're going to have to mop the floor. And he goes, well, what if nobody mops the floor? I said, well, then we all just stand around in the kitchen until the floor's mopped and nobody gets to leave. And I'm going to let everybody know that it's not mopped because you didn't get someone to mop the floor. So are you telling me to do something? I said, no, sir, I'm not telling you to do anything. Well, long story short, the inmate who wasn't mopping the floor shows up to work one day, has a black eye, says he fell off the bunk, and he mysteriously started mopping the floor every day. And it was that way at San Quentin, but it wasn't that way at Solano. So that led me to look for another job.
Does working in corrections change you as your personality?
I don't know if it changed my personality. It changed my view of people, because there's when you're growing up, you're told anybody in prison's a bad person. They're not. They're not. There's people that I have friends that were in prison. Some of my closest friends were in prison for 12 years. But it changed me on how to view people and how to talk to people. I've said, I don't mean to keep repeating myself, but which helped me tremendously later on down the road. So when I was at Solano, didn't like it. I had a friend of mine talk me into being a reserve police officer in Dixon, California. Small city. And I thought, man, you get paid to drive around in a police car? He's like, yeah. He's actually the mayor now in Dixon. But that got me into thinking, okay, well, maybe I'll be a street cop. And I applied to the highway patrol, and I didn't get picked up. I failed the background. And then I applied to Richmond Police Department. They picked me up. That was in 1994. I went to work for the Richmond Police Department, which is, if people don't know about Richmond, it's at that time it was either number 1 or number 2 of the most dangerous cities in the United States. And they went by per capita, per 100,000 people. And I remember one year we had 64 murders in a population of 100,000, which is a lot.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that answered your question about, the prisons changing. But when I went to the street, I knew how to talk to people, as to where some of the officers, the new officers, they get a badge and they just think everybody's going to do whatever they say, and it just doesn't work that way.
Like you have a past with the Hells Angels and working corrections and then working the street. Are the bad guys that different than the cops when it's all boiled down? I
think there's I'm trying to think of the right word, like a machismo in everything. You know, you want a Hell's Angel, they're macho, they're Hell's Angel. Mm-hmm. Any bike club, gangsters, and then cops. I mean, it just there's a machismo to it. Like I don't know if we're trying to prove ourselves that we're men or what it is, but it was almost became addicting, you know, to the things and stuff that we did and stuff. And like the Hells Angels, I would get, I don't want to go too far ahead, but when I ran our gang unit in the Richmond Police Department, you had the Richmond Hells Angels. I had guys that wanted to do cases on the Richmond Hells Angels, and I wouldn't let them. And they would be like, well, why? That, you know, they're your friends? No, I didn't even know any of the Richmond Hells Angels. No, that's not our job. Well, they're a gang. I said, okay, whether they're a gang or a motorcycle club, our job in the city of Richmond is to stop the violence in the city of Richmond. That means these black gang members, the PJTs, Fifth Street, all these other guys who are shooting each other and killing each other over drugs, that's our focus. So until the Hells Angels come and start shooting up the street and killing innocent people in drive-bys, I'm not going to worry about them. They handle their own business. They don't give us problems. So why should we create something that's not there to go after them? Are there some bad people in it? Yes, there is. But they also deal with each other a lot. I haven't seen a Hells Angel drive by and do a drive-by shooting in the middle of 5th and Nevin in Richmond, California.
That's not
just doesn't happen.
Not their thing.
You know, and so I would get a lot of grief over that sometimes. You know, they're kind of clowning a little bit. You know, they're your friends, all this stuff. No, they weren't my friends. It was just our job is to stop the violence in Richmond at that time. And until they create violence in the city of Richmond, I'm not worried about them. And I think they looked at me a little off about it, like not that I was crooked or anything like that, but there was just no need for it. We were too busy with other stuff. They handled their own thing, and we're going to handle this over here.
Gangs are big? They're thick up there?
Yeah, in the city of Richmond, gangs are big. I don't know how it is now. It's been a while. I know they're still there.
But you ended up in the gang unit?
Yeah, I wound up in the gang unit. I worked patrol. In Richmond, I worked patrol for about a year and a half. Then I got selected to go to the street narcotic team, which was we rode enduro bikes, dirt bikes. There were 7 of us and a sergeant. And that was so we could chase the guys through up and down stairs, through apartments, sneak up on them. I actually crashed in front of a bunch of them, and one of them came back and checked on me. But what I didn't know is he's picking up his gun that he had dropped when he took off running. He's like, Monahan, you okay? Yeah, I'm okay. I got to get this. And he grabs his gun and takes off and runs. I did that for a while. And then I was selected to go to Undercover Narcotics. And I did that for about 6 years, 5-6 years Undercover Narcotics.
Is that more exciting than
Yes.
Street Cop?
Yes.
It's got to be, right?
It was. You use a lot of informants, but when you're actually doing some of the undercover buys and stuff, I did a bunch of, just dope buys and small stuff. That was fun, exciting. Sometimes it would be weird to make friends with somebody and then you're arresting them. That was kind of...
You make connections with people, even despite their background.
Right.
And then you turn your back on them.
Right.
It's got to be hard.
And as a narcotic officer, I think undercover narcs, I did that. I think the biggest deal I ever did was an officer had a case, and we were trying to buy 5 pounds of methamphetamine, and I was the undercover officer. So I'd ride a Harley, because what cop rides a Harley, right? And I had worked my way up. I had bought an ounce and then a pound, and then we were going to buy 5 pounds. And we were working with the DEA and FBI task force. You'll find that most undercover officers are always attached to some kind of DEA task force or FBI task force because it brings in resources and money. And so this was probably one of my scariest times as an undercover officer. I mean, there was a couple, but this one time we had set up to buy 5 pounds. We have everything set up, rescue officers, SWAT team. And I go upstairs to the apartment, and there's wife and kids in there. I feel comfortable. I have a gun. They have guns, and they asked, can everybody put their guns on the bed? So I did, put my gun on the bed. And then his name was Ben. He pulls out 2 pounds and shows me. He goes, okay, pay me for this, and then I'll go get the other 3 pounds, and you can come back for the other 3 pounds. I said, no, I'm not doing that. I'm here to buy 5 pounds. When you get the 5 pounds, call me. Or we had pagers back then, you didn't really have, I think we might have had Nextels. They were relatively new. I can't remember for sure. But I remember calling them from a payphone. So I left. Well, the higher ups in the DEA and FBI were mad that I left the 2 pounds there and that I didn't call the bus signal. Well, it's because I wanted the 5 pounds, and we were going to get 5 pounds. So Ben says he'll get it. So I leave. We're off at a location, hidden location. But surveillance is still watching the house or watching the apartment. And during that time, the wife and kids leave. Nobody else comes to the house. They pull I still haven't figured this one out. They pull a carpet up there, like a rolled up carpet. They pull that up in the apartment. And the case agent at the time, he's telling me all this, that he's hearing from the surveillance. And then the pager goes off, so I call him on the payphone. Hey, what's up? He goes, okay, we got the other 3 pounds here. Like, okay. Well, I know they don't because we're watching them, but I can't say that. So we go back over there. I have a partner with me. His name's Mark, driving the car. We go back over there. Ben and his brother's the one who introduced me to Ben. Come back out, come down the stairs. He said, hey, bring the money and come up. Well, I know the other 3 pounds it's not up there. So last thing I'm gonna do is take the money up there. So I'm thinking, how am I gonna get out of this one? And I'm like, well, I said, is it up there or isn't it? Oh, it'll be here. So then there's my chance, Oh, so it's not here? Well, no, it's on its way. I said, okay, well, we'll just wait here till it gets here. I'm scared. I don't want to go upstairs. I want to go up the stairs again. So these 2 mopes pull up in a car, and they get out. And we called them mopes. They were like the lowest kind of drug runners, usually from Mexico somewhere. They get out, and Ben looks at me and says, okay, it's here. Let's all go upstairs. I said, okay. So the 2 guys that pulled up went up. Ben and his brother go up, and I go up behind them. And when I walk in the door, I look around the carpets over there. Now there's a AK-47 sitting on the kitchen counter, and they want me to go in the bedroom. They want me to go first. And I'm thinking in my head, I don't want to go first. I said, go ahead. He's like, no, man, come on. This is a family deal. We're gonna make a bunch of money. I'm like, I'm all for the money. So let's go. So those 4 go in the bedroom first, and I walk in the bedroom. Now in the bedroom, there's another rifle, a shotgun, and 2 handguns laying on the bed, and the two original pounds of methamphetamine. And I'm thinking in my head, they're going to try to rip me off. They're going to try to figure out a way for me to get the money up there and rip me off, kill me. I don't know. You start thinking all kinds of crazy stuff. Well, the other 2 guys finally pull out the other 3 pounds. They place it on the bed. And Ben says, see, I told you I have it. I said, okay, cool. Let me go get the money. Well, I don't know it at the time, but Ben's right behind me. And I come down the stairs, and the the bus signal was, Alex gonna like this. And I have a wire. And I'm going down the stairs. I'm like, Alex gonna like this. And Ben's like, what'd you say? I said, Alex gonna like this. I thought you said his name was Mark. I said, no, Mark's in the car. And now I'm thinking in my head, oh, I just kind of messed up. You know, I didn't know he was standing behind me. He goes, well, no, you said some other name. And I probably did. I can't remember. But I said, well, no, Alex gonna like this. Well, nobody's coming. I'm waiting to see the SWAT team coming down the street. I'm waiting for all this stuff. I make it all the way to the car, and now Ben's kind of freaking out because he doesn't know what I said. Open the trunk of the car, and there's the money's in there. And finally, the SWAT team shows up. They show up, they throw me on the ground, they handcuff me, they get the other two mopes. Well, the main crook, Ben, and the other guy, they get away. We forgot to put somebody else on the other street, on the other side of the apartments. Why, I don't know what happened or where we failed in that part, but they get away. So we take what we got, we booked the other two guys. They went up to be, the two guys were nobodies, they didn't know a whole lot of people. We had heard, I don't know if it's true, but we had heard that Ben's brother, they both went to Mexico, and we had heard that Ben's brother was killed in Mexico for introducing a cop into their organization. I don't know if it was connected to the cartel or not. Everything seems to be. I mean, who knows? They said it was, but I have no idea. And then about a year later, we had Nextels by now. The case agent hits me on the Nextel saying, hey, where are you at? What are you doing right now? I said, I'm in the office typing. This is a year later after we did this operation. He said, I think Ben is over here getting gas. Can you come see if it's him? And back then I drove a Cadillac and I had real long hair and just, you know, that's what you do as an undercover cop. You grow hair and a beard. And I go flying over there and I pull up to the gas station thinking this guy's going to be gone by now by the time I get there. He's still there. He had went into the store and bought a bunch of stuff and he comes out. Well, I get out of my car and pretend like I'm going to get gas. And Ben looks at me and goes, hey, Dave, how are you? I go, good, Ben. How are you? He goes, you know, just trying to survive. He goes, I'm going to go to jail, huh? I said, yeah. So he looks at me, he goes, I'm going to go home.
Take your time.
I'm going to go home and say goodbye to my wife and kids. Why this one chokes me up, I have no idea, because it's really nothing. So I said, Ben, you can't go home. He goes, yep, I'm going to go home and say goodbye to my wife and kids. I said, all right. Patrol guys are on their way. He jumps in his car and takes off. I next tell Wang, he's heading home. Patrol officers finally get there. They get him stopped right in front of his house, or his apartment. They arrest him. And we're doing some stuff. We're getting ready to go up into the apartment. And one of the officers says, hey, Ben wants to talk to you. I'm like, okay. So I go over, I open the door to the patrol car. I go, what's up, Ben? He goes, hey, Dave. I go, yeah, he goes, can I get a favor? Yeah, but can you have my wife and kids come down here and say goodbye? I said, yeah, no problem. So I let them come down and say goodbye. And then That was the last I saw Ben. I think I had heard rumors that he took a deal like 10 years or something. I can't remember what it was. But it was not that it was okay, but he was doing stuff to make money for his family and his kids. And he had lost his brother over it. And I thought, man, that's the least I could do is let him say goodbye to his wife and kids. And I don't know what happened to him after that. And I have no idea why that story.
You get attached to some of these people.
Gets me choked up, but it is what it is. But that was my biggest thing in narcotics, like my big undercover deal. You know, I know a bunch of people that did a lot more stuff than that, you know. But from there, there was other stories in there as a narcotics officer, you know, just buying. I remember buying dope from a guy and he knew. He's like, man, I made a mistake. I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, you got to be a cop. He goes, you don't use drugs. You don't look like that and use drugs. I'm like, it's not for me. It's for my friends. You know, they work for me. I'm getting it for them. And there's little stuff like that happens. And we never did arrest that guy. And I can't remember why. I think he was just a small time, you know, doing stuff. But you'd go in these houses and make friends with people and convince them that you're not a cop and sell you stuff, either guns or dope. So I did that for about 6 years.
Does it ever go where they don't trust you? Do you think you are?
Yeah, sometimes. Or they'll call you and say, oh, I can't get it now.
Oh.
So, you know, okay, for some reason they got spooked.
Yeah, you get spooked.
So after the narcotics thing, of all things, I worked a little bit in code enforcement because we would take the drug houses and close them down. And the attorneys, I worked closely with this attorney, and I had to have to make sure everything's correct. The reports were written right, the narcotics were found correctly, and we'd try to take their home. They would always work out a deal and get it back. You know, no one went homeless behind it or nothing like that. And then I got promoted to a sergeant. I went back on the street as the sergeant for about a year. And then they wanted to start a gang unit. And this one guy, Pomeroy, was already assigned to the gang unit and worked with the FBI Safe Streets Task Force and all this stuff. And so I took that job as a sergeant with that, and then expanded that from 1 guy to 5 guys. And then that led to working with parole agents. I'd have parole agents actually work out of our office. And so expanded that. Then it was firearms. So we had gangs, guns, and parole. And my first day as a sergeant in the gang unit, we're working with the FBI, and we're following somebody. I can't remember who it was. He was on the news and stuff, and we were trying to catch him and arrest him. And this guy Pomeroy, who was my only officer at the time I had, said, hey, we're going to go over here and do this. Well, I need to go to Oakland and help them. Well, it turned into this big mess, a car chase, 2 car accidents. One of the canine dogs bit another officer, and it turned into a car crash and the suspect holding a baby, and kind of a standoff for about 5-10 minutes before we convinced them to put the baby down and make the arrest, which doesn't sound like much, but when it's out there and you have all the streets blocked off and these accidents are happening, you're in another city. Well, the lieutenant of Oakland PD shows up and says, hey, who's in charge of all this mess? And Pomeroy and the other FBI agent point at me, and he is. I had no clue what to do. I'm looking and I'm like, he goes, what do you need? And I just ran it down to him. I need people to go to the hospital with a suspect. I need officers to take the traffic accident. I need these guys transported for interviews, the officers that witnessed all this. No problem. I'll take care of it. It was awesome. Turned out great. After that day, I'm like, this is cool. I like this. So I went on from there, from the gang unit sergeant. I got promoted to a lieutenant. I literally worked the street about 6 months on graveyard as a watch commander, not knowing what to do. You don't know anything. People think we know what we're doing. You don't at first. You learn real fast. So then they called me and wanted me to take over the whole plainclothes unit, which was all the undercover narcotic detectives, the parole unit, all the gangs, all the firearms unit.
This is where?
In Richmond.
Richmond.
Yeah, still in Richmond. Mm-hmm. Everybody was still on the task force. And so my office was in the narcotics division, which wasn't at the police department. It was about 15 minutes away in a undisclosed location house. So nobody could see us coming and going or what cars were driving or anything like that. And I loved it. I loved every minute of it. And it's weird because it's who you have working for you. It's not necessarily you or me, but it's the people that work for you that make it happen and make you look good. I didn't want to retire, but when I started playing with the numbers, I was going to get a $300 a month pay raise if I retired. What I wasn't counting on was the loss of the overtime. That kind of hit hard. I didn't realize I was making so much overtime every year. But you adjust. But you learn a lot. You learn fast. Anytime you tell another officer anything, you worked at San Quentin, they go, oh. Or then you tell them you worked in Richmond, and they, oh man, that's scary. It wasn't. You were used to it. It wasn't.
Are you an adrenaline junkie?
Yeah.
Working in a safer community working Palo Alto wouldn't have done the same.
No, it would have been boring. We had officers that left Richmond and they came right back. They weren't into chasing skateboarders in the park. We had one night when I was new, me and this officer Taylor, we were at a homicide scene. There was already 2 homicides within 15 minutes. So we bounced from one homicide scene to the other one, and then a third shooting came out across town. We didn't have any officers. We had nobody available. So they said El Cerrito, which is our neighboring city, was busy also. So we looked at our sergeant and said, do you want us to go over there? They said, yeah, go over there and see what that's about. So we go flying over there, thinking El Cerrito was going to be there. El Cerrito still hadn't arrived yet. It was right on the borderline of Richmond and El Cerrito. There's a big party. I mean, the party's so big, there's people outside, there's people in the backyard. And we go running in the house. And we're running in the house, and the music's playing real loud, and people are dancing. And we look down, and there's a guy laying there in a pool of blood. And me and Taylor, we look at each other like, and we ask somebody, real loud, hey, what happened? He goes, oh, that guy shot that guy. So we look at him, and he looks at us, and he has a gun, and he takes off running. He goes out the back door, and he gets away. I mean, we're slipping and sliding in the blood, right? That night, but we were so used to it, it didn't strike us as odd or weird. And so we just figured, okay, we probably shouldn't have ran in the house like that, but we did. And then we just took care of that, closed the party down, and got more help there. And that guy died too. So there's three homicides in about 20 minutes in the city of Richmond. And there were some nice parts of Richmond, and there were some super, super nice people. It was just the 1 or 2% of the bad guys that made that city what it's known for. And it's just crazy. I met people. There's a gentleman Devone Bogan. He's I can't think of what his title is now. He started his own company, but it's to help reduce violence. And I worked with him bringing, in the gang unit, I worked with him. They would bring gang members of opposite gangs to a meeting and make them talk to each other. And Devone would take these people and take them on trips out of the country together and make them get along with each other.
What a wonderful project.
And I say that because that's where I learned that some of these people that grew up in Richmond had never been anywhere else.
That's the key. It opens your mind. Yeah. And it makes you realize where you stand in the whole.
Right. They hadn't been to San Francisco, and they're 15 minutes away.
Yeah. Take a trip to.
They just know Richmond,
Africa,
Richmond or
Asia,
the
America.
prison.
You'll see the world differently.
Yes, big time differently, and it was a eye opener for me, and I think it was an eye opener for a lot of people. That these kids, they just, it's not necessarily it's not even a race thing. It's just a cultural thing of like where you're born and raised. And if you don't know the difference or know any better, what? That doesn't make you a bad person. You just don't know, and you're doing the wrong thing. You reach an age where you should know, or you know better. But it just big eye opener for people who've never seen that or know about it.
Yeah.
To be a 25-year-old kid and never left the 10 blocks you grew up in. It's just crazy to me.
What would you say is one of your worst experiences as a police officer on the streets?
Probably would have to be when one of our officers got killed. I was a patrol sergeant. I was a sergeant patrol. We had another sergeant there. At that time, I think we had 3 sergeants, which is actually a lot of sergeants for a city that small, but you needed them. One of the sergeants was off work, and our lieutenant was there, and we were having team lineup, the morning lineup. And that's where you sit and everybody kind of knows where they're going. They tell you what car they're gonna drive and some of the highlights that happened the night before. And he wanted people what to look for. Well, this particular day, we had Officer Moody. Brad Moody was a canine officer, so he had a dog with him. And the guy was great. Kind of goofy in a way, but everybody liked Brad. Even the crooks liked Brad. They did. But the guy could just, he had a knack for like finding guns and finding people with guns. He would see someone walking down the street and stop and they'd have a gun on them. If they ran from him, he'd use his dog and the dog would find the gun. Well, I had recognized this as his sergeant. Sorry. And I was giving him a letter of commendation. I don't think I've told this one before. So the idea was at the end of the lineup, Call him up. Give him the letter of accommodation. Well, at that time, graveyard shift went home already. So there's nobody on the street. So a fight call comes out over the radio. You get this alert. We all hear it. Well, I think we were going to go on our days off. So I wanted to do it that day. Give him the letter of accommodation in front of everybody. So our lieutenant at the time knows what I want to do. So he hears the call. A lot of times those calls, when you go to them, it's over. The fight's over or nothing's there. So he's sitting in the back room and he looks at me and he goes, "Hey, do you want me to go handle that call for you?" Knowing that I wanted to give this officer. Then I said, "Yeah, that'd be great." So he leaves. He goes to the call. So I present Brad with the letter of accommodation in front of everybody. Everybody claps. This incident where this is occurring is in Brad's beat. He's responsible for that area. Apparently, when the lieutenant gets there, the fight's still going on. They're not even stopping when he shows up. A lot of times they'll stop when you show up. So he gets on the radio and says, "Hey, send me some other officers or something." I can't remember exactly what it was. Basically, he needs help. So Brad leaves. Takes his letter of accommodation, says thanks. He's happy. Super happy. He leaves. Well, you hear him leaving. You hear him with the lights and siren leaving. He leaves the police department, and there's a turn that kind of curves, that goes under a bridge. Well, I don't know it at the time, but he never makes it there. Then I hear somebody on the radio say, "Hey, there's a TC. Moody crashed." I don't remember the exact words or how it went. But I'm like, okay, we'll get there in a minute and we'll handle it. Then it comes over the radio. Supervisors need to get here now. And you can hear in their voice. Being a cop so long, you can tell voices and what's important, what's not. You could hear it. Something's not right. So we go flying over there. And what had happened was it was still kind of wet out, dewy out. It's kind of foggy right there. It's right on the water, so you get a lot of fog. And his car had slid sideways, slammed into a pole. But when we get there, you have all kinds of stuff in the center of your console. You have all the radio, the computer. That pole was where that stuff is, right next to Brad. As I'm pulling up, the dog is outside the car, running around. It had went through the window. We didn't know at the time. went through the window. The officers were having a hard time pulling Brad out because the dog wouldn't let him close to Brad. So somebody else showed up who kind of just took care of the dog, pulled Brad out. October 4th, 2008. You could tell something wasn't right. He wasn't just hurt. Get him in the ambulance. I helped a little bit pull him out, but the other officers were doing most of it. Get him out of the car, get him in the ambulance. Airlifted him to John Muir, which is a emergency, really good hospital. And he had severe head injuries, and he passed away about 4 days later. And just literally, I think someone figured it out. It was like 6 or 7 minutes after getting that letter of accommodation, he had crashed. And some of the stuff that I hold inside me is, was he too excited from that? Was he driving too fast? Apparently he was. We wouldn't have crashed, I guess. But you always drive fast when you're going to try to help somebody else, another officer or something. And then I'll ask myself, why did I give it to him that day? I don't know. But that was hard to get through. To have an officer get celebrated for what he does, and then 6 minutes later, he's dead for doing it. The crooks, one of the worst parts of Richmond. Guy was like 3rd and Devon, 4th and Devon, whatever. Put a big memorial up for him. And I always thought it was kind of cool that they're people too. They understand. But it's a terrible way for me to present the worst day, but that was probably it. It's actually the first time I told the story.
Thank you for sharing it.
For sure.
Darren, let me ask you one last question.
Yeah.
What would you say is the most important lesson you've learned in your life?
People are people. People, same thing that all the old people say, right? Life's short and all that kind of stuff. Life's short, enjoy life while it's there and all that. But there's so many biases out there and hatred that it's people make different decisions, and some people are a little off mentally. But just because they're in a violent city with a gun doesn't make them a big piece of shit in the world. That's what they know. That's where they live. And so it's made me learn and treat people differently. I don't just because you tell me you've been in prison, that's cool with me. Hopefully you learned from it and moved on. I currently own a gym now. And in that gym, we have Narcotics Anonymous classes because they lost their meeting place, so I let them hold it in our gym. And through that, I've met a bunch of people that have just gotten out of prison. And they want to work out, but they have no money. They want to train. They want something to keep their mind off of drugs or crime. So I have a business partner too. We let them train in our gym for free. Don't rip us off. As soon as you get a job and get back on your feet, start paying us. I haven't had one person not pay me. And some of them will take care of the place better than we do. They'll lock up for us at the end. They'll kick people out that haven't paid. Sometimes you have to tell them to relax a little bit, but and I don't think other people, especially cops and stuff, don't give people a chance. And I think we've had people not show up to the gym, and I've seen them somewhere and say, hey, how come you're not coming to the gym anymore? Well, I can't pay you, so I feel like I'm ripping you off if I can't pay you. It's okay. Well, I appreciate that. You're still welcome to come train and work out. I think the other thing that I truly believe in is we've gotten too soft. The whole world's gotten too soft. The crime. I mean, there's no punishment for crime anymore. And there's no. I always challenge people to tell me, because maybe there's one out there. I don't know, but I don't know it. Just one law. Just show me one law that's been made that's reduced crime. The answer is zero. There's not a law out there that's reduced crime. It just gets worse and worse. And when I say we, whoever we is, society or judges or district attorneys or whatever, accept their excuses for everything. And then they want to try and treat their excuses, which sometimes it might work, sometimes I don't know. But there's no punishment for crime anymore. There's no more punishment for whatever started the action in the first place. I don't know if I'm using that the right terms, but if let me back up a little bit. I have not met one police officer that I know of that has woke up in the morning and said, I'm going to go out and kill somebody today. That's my goal today. That doesn't happen. Just doesn't. And so if somebody does something wrong and the police show up and it creates and turns out into a shooting, and maybe the guy did pull a cell phone out or something and it's not a gun and the officer shoots and kills the guy. Now the officer goes to prison. That officer didn't choose that. The person who made that happen was that suspect, that person that got the police there in the first place, didn't listen to the officer. He's told, let me see your hands, freeze, stay there, don't move. They don't want to listen, they want to argue with you. And then they turn around and get hurt, and now this officer's in trouble and getting fired. And that's just not right. It's led society and everything down the wrong path. Do I think there's some bad officers out there? Yes, I've seen them. But it's not like people think. It's so far and few in between. You got thousands and thousands of police officers, and you're going to treat them all like they all did something wrong? That's just not right. And I don't even know how to fix it. It's so far gone.
Yeah.
There's no way. There's no fixing it.
There's a lot of animosity against the cops.
Yeah, there's a lot of animosity towards that. Only when they see something wrong. If an officer makes an arrest, it looks terrible. It looks terrible. With you fighting with somebody, you are there to make that arrest. You're not there to fight with somebody. You're not there to get killed. You're not there to get hurt. So whatever they're doing to resist, you have to overcome that. And I don't care how you do it on video, it looks terrible. And until you've done that job, you will never understand.
What does the general public not understand about the difficulty in being a cop?
They don't understand the mental damage it does to you, the officers.
It's got to be hard on your family.
Yeah, it's hard on the family. They don't, a lot of them will say, well, that's what you signed up for. There's some of that. I mean, because you do kind of know. But no, I don't think anybody really signed up to go get killed or told they can't react how they're supposed to react and get hurt behind their job. it's, and I don't care who you are, everybody calls the police. The drug dealers would call the police when they got ripped off in Richmond. They would call us, oh, he stole my drugs. What? What do you want us to do about it? You know, there was a guy once, Richmond and North Richmond was primarily African-American black neighborhoods. And so, you know, they always said that you've heard the term driving while black and all that, right? Well, when I was in patrol, if you were a white guy driving through my neighborhood, if you weren't on the main street where I know you were going back and forth to work, you know, you're going to get pulled over because you're either there you're either lost and you need help getting out of there, or you're buying dope. And 9 times out of 10, you're buying dope. And this one gentleman, we get a call, 4th and Nevin. You go out there and the guy's standing there in his underwear, white guy. Wound up to be a dentist at a Marin. What are you doing? Well, someone robbed me. They took my clothes and my wallet and stuff. Okay. Well, how'd you get here? Oh, my car got stolen too. What happened was he was there to buy drugs. The crooks talked him into allowing them to use his car to go get the drugs to bring it back to him. Obviously, they never came back. They stole his car. Not only did they steal his car, they went and told their friends where he was standing, and his friends went and robbed him and took all his stuff. And that was a dentist. That's how bad the drugs affected that guy. And he thought he was going to call us and we were going to save him. There's nothing we could do. Do
you feel like the drug problem in our country is bigger than we realize?
Yes.
I think there's a lot of people in the general public who are...
Yes. I know for a fact it is. I know for a fact through some of the training and stuff, working narcotics, where down at the border, you can't stop everybody, and they know it. They know. They'll know 6 cars are coming loaded with drugs through the border, and we can only stop 2 or 3 of them daily. And, you know, if there wasn't a demand for it, I guess it wouldn't be coming through. But I think the drugs turns into a mental problem, and then we have mental problem issues that we're not addressing. Get rid of all the mental institutions, don't put them in jail anymore, and then they wind up living on the street getting high. They don't. That's all they want. They don't want anything else. You can't help them. You can't give them anything to make them stop until they're ready to stop. But, I mean, I can go on and on
and not everyone
for that
gets to that point.
Right.
All right. Darren, thank you so much for sharing your story and your thoughts, and
for sure.
I wish you lots of luck.
No, thank you for having me. I really, really appreciate it. And it's almost therapy for me.
It's a fascinating talk.
Thanks.
Thank you. When I was designing the first Soft White Underbelly book, I realized that there were so many great portraits that weren't going to make it into that book. They just wouldn't fit. And once I saw how well that first book sold, I knew I'd have to design a second book. This second book is finally ready to ship. Like the first one, this book has a collection of some of the best portraits from Soft White Underbelly, accompanied by a quote from that person's interview. This book features another group of Rebecca portraits, as well as a collection of color images of the Whitaker family, and plenty of others. You can order yours for $125 or $150 for a signed copy at softwhiteunderbelly.org. Again, like the first book, once this book is sold out, I will not be printing more of them. The portraits are what Soft White Underbelly is all about, and these 2 books contain the best of all that work. Thank you for watching.